Hello, and welcome to Augmented Teachings. This is a place where we talk about things that inspire us to think better, feel better, and in turn be better. My name is Brandi, and I'm here with my co-host, Todd Michael Jackson, who is the founder of Augmented Teachings, and also our special guest in the house, again, Robert from House of Frog. Today's topic is about how do politics and soul connect. So today's episode, we will break it down with Todd and Robert. Todd, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. So we heard from the studio audience that this is going to be a very short episode.
Oh.
Because they do not connect, correct? They don't connect. Or let's look at a different angle. So my book is not a political book.
Right.
It's God is greater than religion. It breaks down how God, life, and the afterlife work without any religious input. Mm-hmm. It just breaks it down through my research as a near-death experience researcher. Mm-hmm. All right? So it's very nuts and bolts. But I did put one section that addresses politics.
Right.
It's section I. It's the very last section in the book. So we're going to break this down. I'm going to read it real quick.
Okay.
And then we can talk about what's in this book. All right? Section I. Will the mentality and actions of conservatives or liberals create world peace throughout humanity?
Okay.
All right? World peace is not a goal. It's an inevitability. This species or the next. Earth is a classroom created for us to learn love, and every classroom will eventually reach a level of consciousness to create world peace. Most conservatives have young souls and don't have the spiritual development to overcome fear and ego yet. Even though most conservatives are religious, religion itself cannot teach a soul love. Only through experiences can a soul learn and express love in all ways. Mm-hmm. Love is cultivated and eventually becomes innate within the soul after that soul has had a wide diversity of experiences through incarnation. A younger soul has not had the necessary experiences to learn to embrace love, compassion, and acceptance for all humans yet. The mindset of a young soul conservative generally lacks compassion and acceptance for others that are different, which will cause fear, hate, division, and strife for humanity. These thought processes are not conducive to a world that works for all. The best that young souls can hope to accomplish is peace through assured destruction. Reactive punishment is the mentality of a human whose soul has lost the battle with its vessel. And this mentality resides within many conservative ideals. We'll be talking about conservative ideals in a minute. Now let's look at the liberal mentality. Liberals tend to be older souls that have gained some of the tools necessary to overcome fear and its derivatives. Mm-hmm. When a soul has had a wide range of ethnic diversity in its incarnations, that soul will overcome racism. A soul that had to go through the difficulties of incarnating into the opposite gender will more easily embrace those souls that are making the transition now. Souls that had been mistreated in the past will want to protect those who are being mistreated now. Mm-hmm. Older souls will tend to be more diplomatic in their thought processes and will work to find solutions instead of just trying to find blame. An older soul will innately be more likely to debate or correct an action rather than to attack the human itself. Older souls will implement or encourage policies of compassion and acceptance locally and internationally. This proactive acceptance of all humans can produce a world that works for everyone, mm-hmm. and world peace can be achieved through this level of humanity. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do, and love thy neighbor are quotes of proactive acceptance and not reactive punishment. Every one of us is given the free will to embrace God's love or to wallow in the fears of man. Choosing love, compassion, and acceptance will make profound changes in how you see the world and will change the trajectory of the soul's growth. The more a soul learns to overcome fear and develops towards love, the more progressive a person is and the more divinely guided they become. In this incarnation or the next, all souls will eventually awaken to and express the light of their true nature, which is love. God will always be greater than religion, and so it is.
And so it is. Wow.
I know it's a lot.
It is, but I love it. And I'm so grateful that you decided to put that in because that was that was an extra addition that we put into the last minute final version of that. And that's something that, we had talked about, and we weren't going to put it in the book. And I'm really, really glad that you did.
Thank you. Yeah. And I went over to the home show that we had here recently.
Oh, yeah.
And they had a booth. It was a America First booth. And then I got this little piece of paper and it says Republican Party versus Democrat, which I don't like to say Republican and Democrat. I like to say liberal or conservative.
Because it's more about that mindset rather than...
Because the parties don't stay always the same.
Right.
Right? So, the greatest Republican president was Lincoln. But back then, the progressives were the Republicans.
Exactly.
So, and the Democrats were the
policies and ideas and the mindset was
so they say,
switched,
go Lincoln. I'm like, go progressive Lincoln. So, but here we are, and it breaks it down. It literally breaks down. Nick, you can put that above us or above me or whatever. So right here, Republican, less taxes, right? That's a self-serving greed mentality, even though these taxes go to help other people. They help the sick, the poor, the roads, the elderly. They don't care. They want what's for me right now. That's a mentality of lack. That's fear of not having enough. That's reactive punishment to those they don't want to support or help in any way, shape, or form. That is not an act of love.
Okay.
More freedom. But at the same time, the freedoms that they want are the freedoms to discriminate against others. So if you look at the Freedom Party and you break it down, you're like, you just want to discriminate against all these people and do it legally, and while taking the freedoms away from women, LGBTQ, ethnicities, and people seeking asylum. They want to take those freedoms away from them, but just support the freedoms that support them only. So it's not seeing it through a world view, but it's seeing it just through what they want, their own mentality.
Because that's that me mentality versus the collective mentality, right? Okay.
Tough on crime. They want blame. They don't want to find compassionate ways of rehabilitating people. They just want to give them the worst sentence possible and throw away the key and not have them come out ever if they have their choice. Instead of finding out the root cause of why they were the way they were and finding a way to adjust or help this person overcome the fear, judgment, and punishment within themselves. More homeland defense. On the other side of the veil, we have no borders, none. You could be a soul standing in Mexico and the United States at the same time. Other souls probably laugh at you, right? But there's no borders because there's no fear. It's just
invisible
love.
lines.
The more love a society retains within itself, the slower the borders go. The more fear and judgment, the bigger the borders get. So, like I said, on this side of the veil, the borders are very high. They're very protected. But when love prevails, then those borders start to disintegrate a little bit here and there, become softer. And you look at the European Union. You can take a train from Spain to France and not have to worry about going through customs and having a passport. You just have to get on the train and go. They've unified. They've taken their borders away. These were countries that have fought against each other for centuries, but now the borders are gone. So it is possible.
Right.
If a society chooses to follow love and compassion instead of fear and judgment. Reactive punishment does not work. Proactive acceptance does.
Exactly. Proactive acceptance for all, and how are we choosing to be proactive with that? Thank you for sharing all of those points. I remember when you brought this home. It's interesting. But again, it really points down to that mindset. So welcome to the show, Robert.
Hey.
How you doing today?
Doing great.
Good.
Having a great week. Enjoying being invited here again.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, we love to have you. And we also have Cinnamon, who is your counterpart to House of Frog. She's here in the studio behind the scenes. So, hey, Cinnamon. And then we've got producer Nick in the house, too. So,
thank you, Nick.
Yeah, this is our show. This is who we are. And, sometimes people don't understand how can politics and soul connect. And so that's the topic of today's show. And before we get back to that part,
Yes.
you know, what do you think about that topic? I mean, because most times people would say, well, they don't, that they're two different things, but how can they connect, you know?
Well, you know, I really try not to think about the subject too much in advance.
Right.
Because I like to have the fresh thought and perspective.
Right.
But, you know, for me, right now in my current life, I am the most detached from politics I've ever been in my life.
Right.
I'm considering not even voting or anything like that anymore.
Congratulations. I want to do the same, seriously.
Because just as a practice, my energy is trying to help people, especially people that are wounded, right? Either from childhood or adult or both experiences. So I definitely, every ounce of energy I don't put into that is not really helping those people to the maximum.
Right.
And also, it stresses me out. You know, I am human, you know, and I like the F word. And when things I see I don't feel are like serving humans or discriminating, not just in thought, but in action, and it's hurting people, right? And breaking apart families, you know, I want to send that energy, that hate to those people, because that is a situation they're creating on purpose. And in order for me not to do that, I distance myself because I don't practice that type of energy anymore.
Right.
You know,
You don't want to hold that frequency and vibration
if
for
I
yourself.
send that energy out, it's coming back.
Exactly.
And it's whipped my ass in the past. So
Well, I mean, look at your bracelet. You know, we can look at that in terms of energy. You know, it always comes back. That's that cycle. And so what we put out comes back to us. And continue. Thank you. Just something I just wanted to point out.
And so just from that perspective, just so people understand how it's a frog and cinnamon and ourselves, we have the same type of feelings for those people that are those oppressors and those things that base on color and that divisiveness of politics, right? So what we do is we just channel our energy, and we just I think it's the Book of Enoch. It says that a man that does not meditate will not know peace. And so our thoughts and energy are sent to our president to have peace. That's what we practice, and that's what we send him. Our personal opinion is no value, right? It doesn't matter what I think. What matters is this man needs to have peace, and the people like him need to have peace as well. And so that's the energy we send out. But that ego in politics, man, and soul, politics is effect and cause, right? And so, or cause and effect, sorry, and it is the effect of the ego. We either have those young spirits, that young energy that doesn't have the combined experiences to be that positive, to even understand, doesn't have that wisdom, that DNA embedment,
Right.
doesn't have any of that. And then we have spirits that have been injured and hurt. They're wounded. That's what the ego is. It is our inner child, and it's either wounded or it's young, or, you know, it's both. And it could be a catastrophe because that ego has innately wants to be heard, wants to be understood. And if wounded, wants to win. It does not want to lose anymore. It lost from life, people that are supposed to protect it, care for it. It does not, it wants to win. And so it comes out in things like politics or maybe even sports and stuff, right? It comes out because there you can, those wounded spirits, instead of healing themselves, they expel that hate and energy, what was done to them. And I think for our physical side, the 3D world, it feels comforting to them.
Right.
Right? Even though I think a lot of people live in guilt and shame of their actions afterwards.
After the fact, yeah.
And so for me, politics is just another way that people that are hurt or young can go and hurt others. And really, I think the solution is fucking meditate and get some peace.
Right.
Exactly. And go ahead.
And to get back to what you were saying, you can't make a difference. Just give them peace, send them love, and hope that they make the change. And for most people, that's all they can do. But I have a little something different to offer to these conservatives. I have a little something different. I can explain the ramifications of your actions. I can explain the repercussions of this mindset and these intents.
Right, because that's what it comes down to is
Right.
the mindset and the actions. And
Right.
so when we know better, we do better.
Right.
And that's why we talk about these things and that's why we share these things because we're doing our part to take action.
Right.
To help other souls to change those mindsets.
And that's one of the things is I'll sit there and watch Fox News and I can watch it for 30 seconds. I mean, okay, this is the ramification of what you just said right now. This is the ramification of saying that to these people at this time. I wish I had a show where I can just, they send me clips, I break it down and I pause it and I break it down right there and show the mistakes they're making. The right's always about the 10 commandments. I can go through and say, you broke this commandment, this commandment, this commandment right here in one sentence and realize the reason why we come here is because we learn so fast. Why do we learn so fast here? Because everything we do here is returned to us twofold. It's a dual-edged sword. So not only do we have to relive the fear, judgment, punishment we beset upon others on our past life review, we have to receive that type of punishment in the next incarnation or 2 or 3 incarnations from now so you can feel what it felt like to have that bestowed upon you. So you learn empathy and compassion.
Go ahead. Go ahead. There's so many things to say all the time. But
I'm going to just,
Yeah, go ahead.
I love that perspective and the things you're saying in there because my approach and my thing, this is what Source is in through downloads and through our shared energy. This is what we're supposed to be doing, right? But all the light workers, all the chosen have different gifts, right? But it's all for that enlightenment and awakening. And that approach, like we need people of different approaches.
Right. Absolutely.
Because of the different
way people process.
Exactly,
Yes.
right?
Yes. And I do want to share though, and with that, in that respect, like we all have a choice, right? And everything that we say, think, and do. And on one of the last shows, you had spoke about, it's all about, what is being fed to us, but also what we are eating, what we are consuming, and people are always consuming different things. People are consuming through this side, that type of news or not news or whatever. And we always have that choice and to choose a certain mindset and a certain mentality. And then from that mentality, then that creates our state of being. And then we take action on that. And we were speaking earlier and actually recently, like in this past week about, when we are presented with a situation, we can either react or we can go into that creator mode because we are conscious creative beings. And when we create from a higher state of consciousness, because then we remember that, oh, hey, am I going to respond and react to this out of judgment, hate? You talk about proactive acceptance or reactive punishment. Am I going to do that, or am I going to create something positive for myself? And how do we do that? We do that by changing our thoughts, by changing our actions, by changing our habits, our emotions. All that changes our energy, which then in turn changes the consciousness that we are in and ripples that effect outward. So in regards to how do politics and soul connect, because when we realize that the soul is not in politics, the politics is not in the soul, but each individual within politics, there's always, politics is just showing us left, right, this side, that side, whatever. But really, again, it goes down to that mindset. Right. And that goes down to the age of the soul, right?
So how long have you been in the spiritual community, Robert?
I don't know, decade.
How about you, Brandi?
Probably around that.
All right.
Around that.
When I started my research, it was objective. I had no religion and no spiritual basis for anything. I became an NDE researcher, and I realized spirituality was correct and religion was not. At least in the version of religion that we have floating around today. Right. it's all about guns and flags and crosses. And it's like, none of those things exist on the side of the veil. It's only love.
Well, you talk about, religion is more about like division, like it's them against us. But then spirituality is more about like, oh, hey, man, we're all the same.
Right.
We're one.
Right.
Because the same source that is within you is within me. It was within you. It doesn't matter, and so that's why we have that oneness.
It's a really good thing to say what that division is, because religion is about an external God,
Right.
Savior. Spirituality is about the internal God that you are inside of you, and developing that energy and that power to ascend back.
Right. And that's simple. That one thing you just said right there, that one thing where one group of people, the younger souls, externalize God, and God's here and we're down here. And then the older souls, they internalize God. And that is the correct way of thinking, because with my NDE research, our souls are direct manifestations of God, and these vessels are indirect manifestations of God. So we enter these coming to learn and to have experiences, but every experience goes back to God. So when somebody says, you know what, we're going to have tougher crime advocates, and we're going to go out there and lock these people up for maximum sentences. Instead of trying to help them, you're throwing God in jail instead of trying to help that soul learn.
Right.
So every time they think, oh, we sent them, and it's crazy because right now with ICE, they're sending Canadians. They're not gang members. They're sending people that are here, actresses trying to get their work visas.
Right.
And they're sending them, they're putting them in these holding cells, not gang members, right? But they're just trying to get their visa and they're locking them up, And when you realize you're locking this person up, that experience goes to source. That experience goes to God. When they're laying on a mat with just a little piece of metal blanket on them, and that's all they have, and they don't get to call their lawyer for 2-3 days, they're going to be in there for months, and they did nothing wrong. I came to renew my visa. Oh, your visa expired yesterday? You're out. We're going to throw you in the dungeon, right? You're doing that to God.
So I have a legitimate question. So if we talk about how everything happens for a reason, and a purpose, what could the reason be? Like we talk about the ramifications of the people that are doing it, right? And what they're creating for themselves, because there's karma keeps everything in balance and everything, law of cause and effect, right?
Right.
So the person that it was happening to, how do they play into that? Because it looks like, they're the victim. That, there's something bad happening to them, right?
Correct.
But again, we don't know in that development of that person's soul how they got to be where they are. Right.
And the thing is that person may have had a situation to where they did that to somebody else, and now it's playing back to them.
Right.
But they say, oh, well, they deserved it. Good, we're off the hook. No.
You
did it to them too. So therefore, their karmic cycle might be ending. You just started. The person who did it just started to them now.
Absolutely.
They're keeping themselves in that karmic cycle. Just like, okay, sure, I may have the chance to murder somebody because of my egoic whatever. I feel like I have to take this action.
Right.
That person may have been on the other side of karma, but then now their karmic debt may be, cleared, so to speak, but then now mine.
That's why it says turn the other cheek.
Right.
Turn the other cheek, right? Because if you react to it, reactive punishment, I'm going to react back, right? Then you put yourself in that cycle now.
Well, and because we always live in the cause and effect universe, excuse me, and we're always creating either consciously or unconsciously. And so when we choose to react, we are actually still creating something, because when we are reacting out of judgment, anger, fear, hate, lack, any of that, we're creating more of that cycle for our soul in this lifetime or the next, right?
Well, that's why why spirituality and wellness, mental wellness
mental
is
health.
so important, right? Because that wounded inner ego, the inner child, right? When you stop inflicting your trauma onto others, right? And you actually try to get better, right? The better you get, the less you want to inflict that on others, right? It's just that balance that happens. And we have a friend, a friend, I don't want to say his name, but we have a mutual friend who we were talking the other day, and he was saying, like, how do I attract these people, and how do I get this, and I need to go tell them like this is, and I said, no, you don't tell anybody anything. Mm-hmm. I go, and I was telling you're part of this. Sometimes you have religious thinking, mm-hmm. and you think going to this place or this location where these people are, mm-hmm. and you're preaching God and you're building churches and a hospital, that's witnessing, right?
Okay.
That is not witnessing, that is colonialism. What witnessing is, in that Bible context, right, is healing yourself, maintaining yourself, sustaining it, in that inner vibration, that light that we are radiates, and then that attracts people. You witness through your light, and that is it.
And that's that Christ consciousness, I believe.
Right? And I was saying at House of Frog when we were in the yurt this past time, and I was telling the group, I said, I have relationships with most of you. A couple I've only met once or twice, and you are here, and you're strangers to everyone else, you know? And a few of us know each other well. I go, and I ain't out there at your house. I'm not knocking at your door. I'm not giving pamphlets. Mm-hmm. Right. I said, my wife and I have a light that attracted you, and that is what witnessing is.
Right.
Thank you for saying that exactly.
Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about that. You want to find a better mate, just be a better person, and that person will just naturally come to you.
Right, because like attracts like.
Right. It's the law of nature.
Absolutely.
Of quantum physics. You know, that's his realm, not mine. But still, I was like, it just made me spark on that when you said that. Yeah. And,
nice.
And I found that to be true myself. If you raise your vibration, the people of lower vibration will kind of like fall off, and you'll have a new group of friends. Mm-hmm. And when we realize that, and one of the things I want to get clear right away.
Okay.
The most hardened right-winger isn't a bad human. It's not a bad soul.
Right.
It's a soul that does not know the ramifications of its actions. Forgive them, Lord, for they do not know what they do. Right. And they're not bad. They just have to learn. And that's the thing is, they're no longer learning from old souls anymore. And I don't call them really Christians anymore. They're Fox News Christians. Instead of following the path of Jesus, they worship Jesus, and then they follow the path of Fox News or other right-wing media outlets
Division or hatred.
Of fear and judgment.
Right.
There were no Christians in the Bible. They didn't exist. Right. There was a man that was living right by attuning his body to the frequency and vibration in nature.
Right.
Exactly.
And he's just telling everyone else that's what you should be doing.
That's it.
That generates love.
I know, and that's true. Exactly, you exude what you bring forth, what you concentrate on yourself.
Well, and I wanted to go back to this part because so in this passage it says, "In this incarnation or the next, all souls will eventually awaken to and express the light of their true nature, which is love." That's what you're talking about. When we awaken to the light of our true nature, then that means that we are now, I felt that in my crown chakra.
Me too.
Keep that in there.
I thought it was just me. That was weird.
Spirit speaks in lots of different ways. But anyways, no. But all jokes aside, those are real things, by the way. But, when we wake up and we awaken to the light of our true nature, then that is when we remember who we are.
Right.
And we remember that we are all one in essence. We are all one in source. We all come from the same source. We return to that same source when we do our spiritual practice, when we do our mindful practice, when we work on our mental health, when we work on, how we view the community and the collective consciousness and all of that. Then when we're in tune with all of that, I should say,
right.
Then that's when we think better, act better, do better, because then we know that what we do, say, think affects the whole.
Right, and the old adage of men have to be strong, and they put the soul hogtied in the trunk, and it's just fear and ego and just walking the walk, right, of tough guy. Mm-hmm. In reality, they're supposed to be developing their soul. They're not here to wallow in fear and ego. They're supposed to overcome fear and ego. Mm-hmm. That's the whole point. You're going to keep coming back until you do. So get on it. So get that soul that's been in the trunk for decades, pull it out, and start working with your soul of love and compassion. Well, I'm not a sissy. I'm not going to be emotional, right?
Yeah.
On this of the veil, it's all emotion. you're going to be like, oh, man, I wasn't prepared for this at all.
You can't take that tough ego with you.
No, the ego
Sorry.
stays here. That is our goal, is to overcome fear and ego, not to ramp it up. And that's where I think people such as myself, and there's other people out there, that they see this steamroller coming, right? Of fear and ego being promoted as the right way within the Christian community, right? Even. And somebody has to say, no, wait a second, this is what's going to happen to you, and you're not going to like it. So I suggest you rethink and switch to other parts of the Bible, because the ones you're reading right now aren't helping you.
Well, and I do think that a lot of souls are misguided right now.
Right.
And that all comes down to the age of soul. It's just like you've talked about, in many episodes, in conversations before. The 2-year-old isn't bad.
Right.
The 2-year-old just hasn't overcome certain things yet and doesn't have that understanding of why it can't do or act a certain way. Right.
Right. And those souls are like, well, I'm never coming back. Those people, they're saying, I'm never coming back. It's like, wait, you came here to learn unconditional love for all. And you're not going to stop coming back until you do, because God deserves the best version of you.
I think people, I don't know, maybe I'm just my thought on it, but I think free will is misunderstood, right? Free will is deciding to come down here. That's free will. Okay. But being here and demonstrating love is going through the experiences to generate love and love everybody, that's what gets you back, right? But people say, no, I came here and I can do whatever I want, and I can do this and that, and they have no concept or idea that, yes, your free will allows you to come here, but your energy and your purpose is to ascend by spreading love. Right.
So that's why we have free will. The free will is to come here, and then we have our volition, which is the power to choose what cycle we want to stay in.
And they choose that hate, they choose that violence, they choose that hurt, because they're fucking young.
Because they're young. That's all that it is. You can look at some toddlers going at it because one kid took his other ball or whatever, and the adults are like, what? Because we have a better understand or a higher understanding.
And I always say that movie Groundhog Day.
Okay.
Is a perfect example of a soul's journey. The very beginning, when he feels like, first he just wants to kill himself, right? And then realizes, I can get away with anything. And just starts robbing banks and playing all these characters, right? Right? Then after a while, then he has a little bit of success. And then he tries to recreate that success with that girlfriend that he liked, that girl he liked. Force that situation didn't work. It has to be organic.
Right.
Then eventually just gave up and became the best version of himself. Then he got to go the next day.
Boom.
That's the whole
there
way.
You go.
You keep coming back until you're the best version of yourself.
Because you're developing yourself, and you can't manipulate the world of conditions per se, other than working on your own self and your own mindset and your own actions and your own habits. So, well, do you guys have anything else to share about how politics and soul connect, or anything else that you guys would like to?
They don't connect at all, really? Yeah. No, I'm good. I know I got the things I want to talk about out.
Awesome.
How about you?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Thanks for the conversation.
Sure, thank you.
Awesome.
It's
Thank
stimulating
you guys.
as always.
Yeah, so
Thank
much.
you.
So, just a little shout out and update on the book.
Oh, yeah.
So, God is Greater Than Religion is actually out. It's published, ready to go. And you can pick up your copy from us. And we actually have already sold our very first one to Cinnamon, who's in the house. So, Cinnamon, you'll be getting your copy soon. Thank you so much, Cinnamon from House of Frog. We love you. We appreciate you. And we are so thankful for your support. And thank you, Robert, for being here from House of Frog. What we do there, because I'm a part of House of Frog. I'm not one of the founders, but I'm definitely one of the core members. I like to think of myself as, because House of Frog has done so much to enrich my life. And yeah, so I'm here today because of Augmented Teachings, because of all of the things that I have been able to validate. You were talking about earlier how you got to your understanding through your experience, you got to yours, I got through mine, and a lot of your understanding came through the research from your NDE, research and everything. And a lot of the things that you share with me through our conversations, through our podcast over the last couple of years, validated for me the things that I learned through my in-depth spiritual experiences through journey
Right.
and meditation and things like that.
And that's one of the things why I wrote the book is because 10 years, you want to know
Right.
at least the nuts. You're not experiencing the spirituality, but you just want to understand the spirituality. This is the nuts and bolts
This
of how it works.
book is about that understanding. And
Right.
so that's why, for me personally, it's been a joy and a pleasure to go through this book writing process with you. And I mean, it says here, moving from faith into knowing and understanding, because I had that faith of, how things were. And then I went into that knowing through my experience. And then you helped me to understand through confirming to me, what other people have experienced by actually almost dying and going to the other side of the veil and going into that oneness, unity consciousness and having their questions answered. And so this book talks about that.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom,
thank you.
your information, because I know for me personally and a lot of our friends and family in our community and a lot of our viewers and listeners, this information has helped them. It validates them. It helps to shift their mindset and their consciousness. And then when we do our breath work and our meditation and our journey and everything with House of Frog and the Mindful Rainbow too, that's when we get to put into practice and we get to exercise all the things that we know and understand.
Right.
And so with all that being said, I would love to just take a moment to close out our session today. And I know that everything that needs to be said is said, and everything that needs to be heard is heard, no matter where we are. I do have the belief that no matter who is talking, God is always speaking, because God is in all things. Each one of us is a manifestation of Source. And so when we take that moment to drop down into our body, drop in from the chaos of the world, whether that's, with our jobs or politics, the state of the world, anything. When we draw away from all of that and the noise of the world, that's when we can really connect with our soul and connect with Source. So just for a moment, I'd like you to close your eyes here in the studio and close your eyes, at home, if you're watching or listening or wherever you are, except for if you're driving, listening to the podcast. Don't close your eyes then. But just taking a moment to really connect, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Taking another breath in and out. And on this last one, I invite you to breathe in and hold, breathing in and pausing. And when you're ready, you release. You let go. You be here. Recently, we've been talking about be where your feet are. Be in that present moment. Your feet aren't in the past and your feet are not in the future. Sometimes listening helps us to be where our feet are. So just for a moment, I'm going to ring the bowl and just listen. And breathe. The most simplest thing we can do in any moment of frustration or chaos is to stop, to make a choice, to remember who we are, and simply breathe. Thank you for joining us today. Be well. Namaste.